Yo, welcome guys to another YouTube video. It's been a hot minute, but this time we're gonna be going over my account for the fall 2025 season. And yeah, let's just get started right away. So it's my fourth legend frame, I think, something like that. Yes, my fourth legend frame. Honestly, thoughts on the frame, I think I like it a lot more than I originally did. I think it fits with the Briar PFP pretty well, so I'll probably stick it with this for the time being. And then maybe if there are better frames in the future, I'll swap over, but yeah. I'd probably give the frame like a 8 or 9 out of 10. Really solid, can't lie. And as for my thoughts on the season, I think it was... Okay, it's probably going to be a hot take, but I think it was easier this season than it was last season for me. I think Cleave was really strong. With like Briar Witch especially, right? I think Briar Witch was a really prevalent part of the meta this season just because a lot of people were playing Revive. And some people didn't really know how to deal with Briar Cleave that well, so... I enjoyed the season. I know some people didn't, but yeah, that's just how I feel about it. I think Cleave overall was in a decent spot. And I know next season Zio Ren's gonna be buffed, so I'm sure when that happens then there'll be a lot of comps people cook up with Zio Rens and stuff like that, right? So, alright, let's get right into it. This will be a different vibe than what it was to if you saw my account review last season with Vic. I'm gonna try to keep the energy a little bit lower, right? I'm not as coked up this time, so trying to just keep it chill. But yeah, my speed spread didn't really change from last season at all. I didn't get a top speed upgrade, so it's just again running the 316 Briar, right? Nothing really changed. It's the exact same Briar from last season, except this time I picked her a shit ton more because of the prevalence of Ruel and Maid and Setsuka, right? Briar is good into all three because it doesn't care about revive and gives hit chance, right? Which means a lot of my bridges, again, you'll notice very similar to last season. It's around 270 speed to be able to bridge up with this, right? 85% of 316 is like 270 or something like that, so yeah. There's the Briar. Renak, again, similar build as last time. 314 speed, lots of attack, and speed. And the point of the attack is sometimes, since I'm not pre-banning Scales, when I have to fight her, then Renak is the best character to use versus Scales. Renak plus Veronica, right? Since Renak can proc the front unit's immortality unit with her S2, S3, and then Veronica can proc her passive and then push above everyone else. And then you can S3 like the Scales while killing the front unit and then bombing the Scales and then S1ing her and then stunning her, and then you can win from that spot essentially. So yeah, Renak was also very strong. But then she's always strong for like all playstyles, right? Cleave, aggro, standard. It's just the build's different. So for Cleave, you want the high attack speed with, I guess, effectiveness is sometimes nice, right? To be able to strip off Barunka if they're like below 100 ER. So Amit, didn't really pick too much. She was good, right? Some people still pre-banned her. But mine was just not fast enough to really contest people. So I only picked her when they're playing super slow and they went like early Huayan, right? Or like some sort of anti-Briar early on, where in that case I figured Amit would be better. Because Amit and Briar can have different strengths, right? Amit's good into a lot of, what do you call it, counterattackers, while Briar's good into a lot of tanks, like really bulky tanks that are like susceptible to debuffs. Since Amit gives skill and all, right? So he doesn't really care too much about counterattackers, so her teammates can stay alive, right? And Briar is really good with debuffers since she herself is also a debuffer and she can push up the other ones. But yeah, when I did pick Amit, it was with units like Judge Kisei, Straze, you know, the typical stuff, and that'll be the times I'll pick her essentially. I know later on some people went on Proof of Friendship. And I think that became the more common Amit artifact to run because it allowed you to bridge past like Sage Balls and Lulukas and stuff like that, right? But I still really like the crit damage, so I just kept this artifact this whole time, so it wasn't really too much of a problem for me. Okay, let's talk about Luna. Luna in this build, again, is just high HP, high speed. I did originally have her on a crit build, but it did less damage than the HP one, so I was like, I'll just keep the HP one. Obviously, Buck, the times I would pick Luna is when they would first pick Arunca and Freeran and Scales are pre-banned, right? So they take the Arunca and I would go Luna Renak in that case. Another scenario I would go Luna is if they go Scales plus Tank down, and I would go Luna on 3 into like SBA, because Luna's also very strong into Scales with the Seal passive and unbuffable, so they can't even proc the Immortality, right? So yeah, Luna had her place in the meta for sure too, and she's very strong versus Freeran and Barunka, so very, very solid unit still. You just have to be careful. She's susceptible to getting cleaved, obviously, so you just have to be careful for that. Rand didn't really pick much, but yeah, just on Silver Rain because this build's like kind of all over the place. But next season he'll get buffed, and Rand's coming back, so my Briar gear is gonna go back on Rand, and we're gonna be slamming Zeo Rand like how we used to, like maybe 2 years ago. So that'll be fun. Next up is Sid. I drafted Sid when I needed an imprint, but they had like Sage Ball or Arcades, right? Where I needed the renewed will push to push my Sid above their Arcades or Sage Ball. Because I'm racing like a Renak, for example, right? So that's when I would pick the green Sid, so he can one-shot the Arcades, I guess, or the Sage Ball after he goes and takes his turn. And like, even though the damage is kind of low, it's enough to kill those type of units, right? And then he can pick up another one after, so. He did end up taking my Eligos gear. That's why his my Eligos is like down there, you know, so. But yeah, Sid, honestly a really strong imprint if you're playing in that specific scenario. So that's why he had this gear. Didn't really pick, so let's just move on. Lidica only picked it as a 5 against very, very specific scenarios, like super specific scenarios. I'm trying to think of one right now. Like if they went Young Senya plus like Flan, for example, right? Then Lidica would be super strong. But that only happened like once, I think. So I think I only drafted her once or twice, if I recall. But yeah, Lidica's kind of dead now because there's too many counters to her. Right? Aaron was especially really, really bad, and now there's just other openers that do a better job at enabling your team. So Lidica kind of fell off to the wayside, but yeah, maybe she'll find a place in the medicine because like her kit is really strong. It's just right now she's not doing the greatest. Speaking of, Para also not doing the hottest, right? But there is potential for her to be good versus Scales, right? Because of the unbuffable and restrict. So if you have like 250 effectiveness, then I could see Para being really good versus Scales. So besides that, just on your normal like speed, effectiveness, except mine doesn't really have any of those stats, so I didn't really pick her. Next up is Guild War Harsetti. I only drafted this when I'm playing Caesarea and Blid in Guild War, so if you don't know the tech, it's just if you play fast Harsetti versus slow Harsetti in Guild War, your Harsetti takes like 5 turns before the slow one takes their first turn. So that's why this build is good with against other base speed Harsettis, because her speed won't be affected. Eligos, this one is just also kind of all over the place. Like his crit's not even 100, but he's just there, so yeah, I didn't pick him at all. Sage Ball, now this one, yes, he's 294 speed because there's a lot of freaks out there that are running proof Ahmed, right? I only pick him versus Ahmed cleavers, so I need him to take the turn, right? So that's why he's at this like almost close to 300 speed. He can afterwards sleep the whole team S3 if he has to, right? And then go from there. Yeah, Sage Ball was really, really, really annoying this season, I can't lie. So, wasn't really a fan of fighting him, but he did deserve a buff after being shit for so long. So I guess he had to use him in the meta. Next up is Veronica. Now, this was used mainly versus scales and sometimes when I race, right? This effectiveness is enough to tag most Lady of the Scales, I'd say. And she would push up after Renak. S2, S3 is the frontline unit, right? So the draft would be something like, they go Scales first pick, I'll go Barunka, Renak. They go like 10A Conk, for example, then I would respond with Veronica on 3 on my side, right? So I'm forcing the race with Renak Veronica, and then pivoting out from my 4-5, depending on what they go, right? So this build was really, really strong. Obviously, Guiding Light, right, to stay in stealth, so you can sometimes pick versus Zio if they don't have a bridge. So yeah, Frida, just on a normal build, right? Nothing really too special. Obviously, this one is the best install artifact for her, more than the other soul artifact, because Frida's gonna take the turn second, almost always, right after your opener. So you get the 20 souls from there. So yeah. And like versus Bellion, it's like you get 20 souls instead of 10 if they're sealed. Now let's talk about Sea Phantom. I drafted this unit quite a bit actually, even though I'm a cleaver, but it's not for what you think. She's only there to stop Young Senya's passive. So, for example, let's say my first pick, let's say they pre-ban Barunka Scales and my pre-ban was Harsetti Bellion, and I first pick Freerin, right? They go like, I don't know, Renak Maid, I go Briar Zio, and they go Young Senya Eula on 3-4, right? So how do you beat those 4 in a row? You go ML Teiyu and Sea Phantom Politis, right? You have 2 activators for Teiyu with Zio and ML Politis. So if they ban ML Poly, or I mean, if they ban Teiyu, then you can rip your Briar S3 into the Young Senya. You don't care because Sea Phantom's on the field, right? And then Sea Phantom can S3, give Rage to your Freerin, and then your Freerin's gonna be able to S3 with attack buff, Rage on all death broken targets, and it should nuke the rest of the team. So yeah, that was her purpose for me this season. It's literally only against Young Senya, nothing else. So, but there was no other way to break through that draft, right? You had to go Sea Phantom plus Teiyu. So not cool. This was a tech pick that I went a lot when Briar was pre-banned, because there were some freaks that were pre-banning Briar near the end of the season. I don't know if they noticed my profile card or they just caught on to the fact that Briar was getting more and more popular. But sometimes she was pre-banned, so I had to pick Nockwell instead. Because Nockwell does a very similar job to Briar in that she can deal with a lot of the revive characters and Setsuka, right? Because Nockwell being able to reset Maid and Ruel means you can kill Ruel on that rotation after Nockwell, let her revive, and all she can do is S1, right? Even if you don't kill Ruel on the same turn, you can just perma S1 Ruel with their S1 and just keep silencing her over and over and over, so she can never revive, right? And against versus Setsuka, you can seal her if she's not immunity, or you can just rip the S3. If you get the 50-50, then you can seal her afterwards, right? Be able to death break everyone is always nice with the candle. So yeah, this unit was a very, very good alternative to Briar. I think it was a better alternative to Sinji, because Sinji just doesn't provide enough as an opener. So yeah, I like Nockwell on 3 a lot. Obviously 26 speed is not the fastest, but if they're playing a bunch of revive shit, then you don't need to be that fast, right? We'll skip Laika. We'll go to Silk. This is standard Silk build on immunity, 284 speed on Sashay. Nothing special here. Nothing special here either, right? Let's talk about Westwind Executioner Shuri. This was, in my opinion, the best imprint with Briarcleave, right? Because there's a lot of scenarios where you can't pick damage as your imprint because they have Freerin, right? So instead, if they're racing with Freerin plus opener, you have to go Dark Shuri instead, because Dark Shuri can deal with the Freerin, right? Because he can push up and then you bomb everyone, and then the Freerin just explodes through her shield, right? So I gave him a lot of my better gear, like the speed is like pretty high for this imprint, and the attack as well, right? Run 100F, run this artifact for sure, right? More effectiveness, and you have an extra chance to land burn after you S3, which is always OP. If you get like 3 burns, then everything dies even faster, so yeah. This unit was very, very underrated. Festive 8 is next. I did pick this sometimes as an anti-cleave on 4, right? If they go like Free Ren, Briar. The other times I would pick this is if I went Spirit Eye Celine solo DPS carry on 3, and I needed a Death Break and a book that can ignore ER, right? And who does that is Fada, because she has Ignore, ER, Strip, and Death Break into a Silence. So you can stall 1 turn with her, while also giving souls to your team, right? So Fada was very unique in that regard. I know some people used her as a Guide to a Decision anti-Briar cleave tech, but honestly there were a lot of ways around that, right? I'll talk about that when we get later down in the units, but how I used her was a lot more aggressive with the book on high speed with like okay-ish HP, right? LPK, that was the time I tried to use this versus Setsuka plus Scales. Just doesn't have enough damage, so didn't really bother. And we get to the imprints that can bridge with Briar, right? You'll see they're up like slightly faster than 270 because Surin's giving the speed to my Briar, but she won't get the speed. So like these imprints need to be just a little bit faster than 270 to really take the turn. Let's talk about Lady of the Scales, the best unit in the game, right? If this was available for first pick or second pick, I would always take this unit. This is my #1 priority unit because she makes Briar Witch so strong. If you watched my Scales showcase YouTube video a while back, you'll notice how if you have an Immortality unit in the front, you can stack this with Scales passive, right? So you get just 70% mitigation for like 3 team rotations essentially, which is so strong if you're playing cleave, because you're essentially, if that's the case, you have a whole cleave team that can also play tank down, which is like absurd, right? Obviously. So Scales was absolutely insanely broken. You wanted the ER. This was very important because this lets you sometimes soul burn straight away at the beginning of the battle, right? Because sometimes you can't just S3 your Scales. You have to go for the soul burn S1 play if like the tuning is bad on your team, right? So that's when I would run this arty and then soul burn S1 and then fear everyone and hope it sticks and lands, and then just go from there. 275 speed was enough to like bridge past mostly everything, right? Because of her S2 passive. No matter if they have Barunka, Sage, Polly, it doesn't matter, Elena, right? She'll always take the second turn after you open it, which is like crazy, so yeah. Literally the best thing in the game, no questions asked, like this unit's absurd. Gala didn't pick much. P-Flan, I picked like once or twice, very specifically into free run solo DPS teams, right? Where if I didn't have enough damage, I would just draft this unit that could just soul burn, pick off the free run by just bombing her, and then S1 again if I have to, and then it's just 4v3 from there with like no DPS, right? Because it's free run solo carry. Then I would whip out this P-Flan unit. Yeah, because obviously if they have like anti-Briar S3 like Elena plus like Ed or something, right? Then P-Flan doesn't have to S3, she could just focus at the free run and then go from there. Caesarea, another very good unit for Briar Cleave, right? This is one of the few units that can deal with Barunka plus Setsuka, because she doesn't care about evasion, right? Because her S2 bomb is a non-attack skill, there's no evasion check on it, right? So you can soul burn your Briar, and then Caesarea activates, and since Briar strips all, she'll just land the bombs on everyone regardless if it lands or not, right? Because there's no evasion check because it's a non-attack skill. And then you can rip this S3 and then just nuke down the Setsuka and then everything else that's on the team. So this area was very, very, very good for Briarcleave. And if you're curious about the EE, just run this one, right? For sure. Frieren, the best DPS in the game, 100%. Right? I ran like a... This is pretty much just my Ludwig gear on Frieren, right? The same speed, 271 with like pretty much the same stats. On Max Lotus Ring, the unit just was so broken. Like she can also be an anti-cleave unit because if they pivot to Zio, like Flan, plus like let's say Teiyu, right? Frieren beats all three. Because none of those three units have any way to deal with Frieren's like barrier, right? Unless she runs out of souls. But if you have a lot of souls already, then they could never kill Frieren. And eventually Frieren could just S3 the Teiyu or S1 Zio or whatever, and then they all die. So there's a lot of games where my Frieren ended up being a solo DPS versus Cleave and like just 1v4 the whole team. Which is like kind of crazy. But I mean, hey, that's why the unit's broken, right? So she was my main first pick. If Barunka and Scales was pre-banned, then I would obviously pick Frieren because she was the third priority, right? The priority was like Scales, Barunka, Frieren, Renak, for the most part. Or Theo. But yeah, absurd unit. Spirit Eye Celine. Again, a very, very strong unit. I also use this probably as my most picked DPS behind Frieren, maybe. Because the difference is she's really strong versus Scales because of photogenic, right? And I made my Barunka with this in mind. So because my Barunka later down the road is on the prot set, that's why she's really strong with Spirit Eye Celine, because she'll have a starting buff right away and you can just get the enhanced S1 for 2 turns, right? She had a good matchup versus a lot of Frieren Fada comps, right? Because she doesn't care about Fada. She's never touching her, right? So, and she's all single target, so very, very strong in that matchup as well. Let me lock to result. Okay, there we go. Just keep it a little more organized. Moonbunny didn't really pick too much. Zio 240F, right? Just be able to land on every single unit that I wanted to for the most part. Obviously with the new buffs, you can run like a 260 Zio or something and then get more damage or more effectiveness. I might try to get more damage on my Zio, but we'll see what the best build is. But yeah, super strong unit too. Zio on 3 was a very, very good pivot this season because there was a lot of Zio bridges that were good. Like Teiyu and Blooming specifically, right? SBA as well, Flan. A lot. Now I talk about Bellion. This was pre-banned for me. Like, I always pre-ban Bellion Arcetti, so I have like no like options or like opinions or any real strategy or things I want to say about this unit, because like, I mean, I didn't pick her, right? So let's just move on. Straze. This unit I also didn't really pick too much because in theory Briar Straze sounds good, but in practice, because Straze def pens and Briar def breaks, Straze can't make use of the def pen that well because he already penetrates defense on his S on the highest HP, right? Yes, the other units will be def broken that he can benefit on, but I'd rather just have a book DPS instead, right? Like a Ludwig or a Frieren that can let me soul burn the Briar, right? So I didn't really pick Straze too much with Briar, but I picked this a lot with Ahmed, like this fast build, right? So that was like the one scenario I did. He's still really, really strong, don't get me wrong. Has some good matchups, right? But just not picked as much as I thought I would. Here's my Holiday Euphane. Only picked this for Zio Blid when they pivoted away and tried to cleave me. then this would be strong, right? With Guide to Decision and just a normal build. Flan, this is one of the 2 DPS I picked with Briar on my 4-5, the other one being Spirit Isolate. Because they all ignore, or like both of them are very good into anti-Briar stuff, right? Like for example, Huayang, Fada, Freeran, right? Spirit Eye and Flan destroy every single one of those because you don't have to force proc the Fada or the Designer or the Freeran's S2 passive, right? You can just play single target Cleave with Briar and then you're chilling, right? So I picked this unit a lot. Yes, she's really squishy. Yes, she's on Torrent. But I already explained my reasoning for why she's on Torrent, because the S1 damage bonus is really nice sometimes, right? On the AoE. And I didn't really find the bulk really that useful since, I mean, I'm cleaving, right? So she's just single target nuking down people. 270 speed because sometimes I can Briar S3 and bridge her instead of having to waste the S1, so yeah. Mort's just again on a fast build with high HP on Perlucia still, in case I need to give a backline unit immunity. Be able to bridge with Briar. Picked early if they went Setsuka early. And he just ended up being a really quality of life pick for Setsuka. That's really it, right? I would sometimes go Mort 3 in some scenarios. Because I didn't want to deal with like Setsuka's bullshit, right? Next up, Eternal Wanderer Ludwig, right? 270 speed on book. The damage loss is kind of huge compared to my Freeran. And I wish I was on Lotus Ring. But it is what it is. As you can see, lots of damage here on the S3 with a, what was it, like 60% death pen, right? So really consistent DPS with Briar. I would pick this a lot on Briar with 3 if I had scales too, because since scales also give souls. So yeah, I think Ludwig was really strong with Briar as well. Normal imprint. Try to get as much damage as I can while also being fast and on Sachet. Okay, let's talk about 10A. Now this one, I picked a lot with Renac, right? That's the entire point of Umbral Keystones, is so you can pick it with Renac and act as a bridge and just go as much effectiveness as possible. I picked this if I needed like really heavy debuffs on their team, or if they went like Barunka Designer, right? Because since she's really good versus Designer, because you don't care if Designer cleanses, because they're all blocked, right? So that's when I would whip out the Tenebria. And her S2 is obviously really strong too with the Rupture, so she's strong into Freeran if you're able to land Rupture. And yeah, very, very strong cleave support. Arcades, this is the anti-Zeotech that I ran. If like I go Freeran and they go Zeo Renac or Zeo Amid or like Zeo +1, then I would go Setsuka and Arcades on 3 and pretty much force the Zeo to take the turn, and then my Arcades pushes up, and then I push up something of my choice, like a BBK, like a Spirit Eye, like I don't know, literally anything I want to, and then just go from there, right? So she's kind of a cheese, but it's a cheese that works sometimes, so that's why she's still on ER. Obviously, next season, I'll have to go Idol Shear because the ER is pointless for Zeo now, right? So he could just soul burn out, so we'll see how I deal with that next season. Fumir. I picked this a couple times. Shoutouts to Vic for teaching me this one, or showing me this one, because there's some scenarios where you have to play control, and Fumir ends up being really strong with something like an SPA, right? But they both give books to your Briar, and then when they go, they can control the whole team by themselves. So yeah, in those type of scenarios where SPA and you need a +1, then like Fumir ends up being really strong. Blooming, I picked this a fuck ton as well, right? On this high F build with Seductive Flower. I'm like close to 300 effectiveness on this. And you just pick this into all the CR cut plus CR boosting units. Like for example, if they go AU Fiend plus Acades, then Blooming Lilica becomes really strong because of the restrict and CR pushback, right? So that was her usage case, right? She's the only unit that can deal with CR push-up plus AU Fiend besides Teiyu, right? So yeah. A Leica, a unit that will definitely be strong next season with her buffs, but for now I had her built in case they went ML Arya on 3 and I needed double AoE book DPS, right, to be able to Soulburn Briar. So for example, if I had Frieren, Briar, Ludwig, and A Leica, right, all AoE DPS, all on bug. So even if they go Arya, I can guarantee Soulburn my Briar, and then either Ludwig plus Leica can kill, or Frieren plus Ludwig can kill, or Frieren plus Leica can kill, right? Those two combined can nuke their whole team. So that's why she was still geared. Shinji, this is like on my Wyvern gear, but just sped up a little bit. That's why she's still on this. But yeah, I picked as a 4 or 5 if I really needed an anti-revive and Briar was pre-ban. Then I would whip out this demonic shit instead as a force ban, and usually that would work. People would ban it and then I would be in a good spot. So that's really only it. Besides that, she's like just way inferior to Briar. Wandering Prince Sid, kind of like a hidden tech with Briar, where he can sometimes be a Blooming Lidica replacement in very specific scenarios, but obviously just way worse, right? The only nice thing about him is that he can hold book though, so but yeah, it's really hard to be able to pick this character well because he's very niche in this scenario uses. Just used for Briar Cleave, right, in case they stole it from me. Teemo didn't really pick that much. I picked it once, I think, when I needed to nuke down a Ruel and Extinctor. So I think that was the only time I did. But besides that, not really. DDR I picked when I needed like really heavy control, right? And they didn't have much cleanse. So for example, if I'm playing against like Yarchies, then I would whip out this DDR, right? So I'm pretty confident in my effectiveness versus Yarchies with this type of build, right? Because I'm on Sacred Tree Branch, so I'm like 234 effectiveness. And just go for the sleeps and then just play from there, right? DDR still has a usage case in 4 or 5 against those type of Yarchies teams. Besides that, not really. There are some scenarios where you can pick him versus Setsuka, sleep the Setsuka, and then your DPS can one-shot guarantee the Setsuka because she's asleep, so you have a 100% hit chance. Which that happened to me a couple times, but not a lot. But still okay 4 or 5 if you really need a control unit. FCC, sometimes I would pick this versus Renak if I had Zeo already, so that way I would have 2 counters to Renak with a Zeo and FCC. Benimaru, I tried a couple times to pick this unit to Young Senya. It didn't work out because it's a 50-50, right? If he gets hit by the Young Senya, he just dies. But if he dodges, then it's actually not that bad if they have like a really squishy Young Senya team. So yeah, that's when I would pick up the Benny. Obviously only to Flan. SBA, right? A really strong unit with Briar, 100%, because this lets you play control with not much RNG involved because Briar is stripping away all the immunity stuff, right? And she gives book to the Briar, so it's guaranteed strip. And then Armita can then go and S3 and try to land stuns on units with no immunity, right? So Briar plus SBA ended up being super strong. Luna SBA is also really strong for the same reason, right? Luna can Soulburn, strip away all buffs, and then SBA can go and stun everyone. So this unit was definitely one of the best bridges with Briar Cleave or Luna cleave, right? For that very reason. I kept the speed because there's some games where you get bad speed RNG or tuning on your openers. So you want Espe to go after your Briar. So at this speed, she won't cut above, let's say, my Briar if the turn order is like Renak that goes first, for example, right? Even if Renak somehow takes the turn first before my Briar, it would still be Renak, Briar, Araminta, as long as I S3 the Renak instead of S2. And then I Soulburn Briar, and then Espe goes GG. That's why I have a lot of F instead, right? 240 F. That's like a fuck ton. Didn't pick because I was in cringe. Let's go down to Vildred, right? Standard imprint I picked with a lot of scales or Ahmed if I had to. BBK, just a normal BBK build. I would pick this if they went Brunka plus Hwayoung, right? And I needed a DPS that's AoE to reach the Hwayoung, but also not die to a Hwayoung kick. BBK was perfect for that. So if I had to draft like Scales, Luna, Briar, BBK, right? And they went like, I don't know, Barunka Hua plus like +1 or something. Then BBK is really strong because the synergy with Scales is really strong too, right? You get 3 immortalities on BBK with Scales. And because she's mitigating all the damage, you do more damage by the time you S3. So she really like nukes super hard against those type of teams. So yeah, definitely strong unit for sure with Briar Cleave too. Just only in some specific scenarios. Well, obviously, Basket's BIS, but my Basket was on Sid, so that's why she's on Chip of the Hollow. Jacko didn't really pick too much. Politis only picked when they went Blue Elena and they had a very squishy team. Then I could use the Politis, like let's say they went Spirit Isoline, Renak, and Blue Elena. Then I would go Politis, trigger the Elena as 2 passive, Politis goes, and then she can one-shot everything else besides the Elena. LHC drafted when they went Setsuka, and I needed a guarantee way to push up and hit her, right, with the, not guaranteed hitter, but high chance to hit her with the Autumn Eclipse. Around this speed, because she gets 50 CR now, right, and I have renewed will push, so I just stacked as much defensive crit damage as possible, and then just rip the S3 on Tauren, right. She's a little bit on the squishier side, but because I'm a cleaver, like, who cares? Next up, we're starting to run out here. Random imprint, right? Celine. Only picked when they went Blue Elena plus solo DPS Renak, right? Or like Renak as one of their carries, because you can trigger the Elena with Briar and then Celine's gonna go straight onto the Renak and one-shot her because most Renaks are the highest attack, right? And then Celine can outpush the Elena because she pushes like I think 54 while Elena only pushes like 40 or 50, I forgot, something like that. I think even less, to be fair. And then she can one-shot the Renak and then one-shot the Blue Elena with Silver, right? So you get 2 for 1, right? So it's a very strong unit into Renak, Blue Elena. Besides that, didn't really pick too much. Yeah, only versus those 2 units. Elena, also a tech pick, right? Sometimes I would pick Mort plus Elena if they're only drafting counterattackers, and I am able to draft Mort Elena to guarantee stop counters. And they both bridge off of my Briar because of her passive with this, and Mort's just being 270 speed naturally. Her damage is really insane, right? She's on Destra Torrent and Soulburn, right? She's really good into Amiki. She can strip off the Amiki buff, and then you can just kill her on the next turn she gets because like, just base speed. So yeah, kind of a tech pick, can't lie. Here's my G-Ross. Kind of ass, but I pick this as an anchor sometimes when they go like Sage Ball, right? And I just needed a hyper carry that also does damage, right? So for example, if I needed 2 anchors with Hua Young plus Giros, that would be good as my 4-5. I'm gonna skip this one because this one I do not like. Alright. Let's talk about Successor Teiyu. The build on this one changed a lot too. It was originally like 170 speed, but I increased the speed by a lot because there's a lot of fast Acades out there with AU Fiend, right? If they go Acades AU Fiend, if the Acades is like 290 speed and you're too slow on Teiyu, like she'll take the turn before the Teiyu does. So if you're like at least 190 speed, that will never happen. So yeah, I sacrificed some damage to be able to deal with Acades AU Fiend, and that's why he's 190, and he's worked out a lot better in sense. But yeah, he's picked a ton with Zio, right? Because he's just, I would say, the best bridge with Zio, honestly. Right? Gives everyone Death Break and it's a hyper carry at the same time. So it's very underrated. Not underrated. He's definitely the best Zio bridge for sure. And we'll move on. Opsig, just a Ahmed follow-up, but I didn't really play Ahmed too much, so didn't really pick her. Didn't pick her that much this season. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. This I did, however. I picked this when I'm forced to S1 on Briar because they have like a designer Lilibet, and I needed a way to bridge up my Frieren without pressing Briar S3. Then I would pick Summer Break Sharklat, right? So, for example, if my 4-5 is Flan Charlotte, they would ban the Flan, obviously, if I'm just S1ing. So Charlotte would go S1, bridge up my Frieren because of her new buff, right? Then Frieren can go and nuke everyone down without having to commit to a Briar S3. So she would do that job for me. And her damage is honestly pretty good with this build. Nothing too crazy, but enough to get the job done versus like designer, like anti-Briar S3 stuff, right? So yeah. Didn't pick strictly an Almond follow-up again, right? This is where my symbol is, but this is gonna go on Rand next season, so yep. Here's my full nuke Straze. Again, only pick with Ahmed, nothing else. Here's my Saria I prefer for next season. Nothing too wild again. And still a work on progress with like Remolas, but that'll be a problem for a different time. Didn't really pick. Cavill I did pick a couple times if I'm playing Frieren, Briar, Zio, because obviously he can proc off of just one crit if you have Frieren, right? So a very strong combo in that sense. But only be picked as a 5 because he's still a fighting spirit character, so he can get countered really easily. So yeah, I didn't pick him on 4. I feel like that was bad. Only on 5. But yeah, his damage is really crazy, right? And he can outpush everything because he pushes 100 CR now. So I mean, hey, he's a really strong character with Frieren. Only picked with Ahmed. This is Harseti Fiend, but I pre-banned Harseti this season. Here's one of my anchors, right? Bystander Hwayoung. Just a normal Hwayoung. If they had like no damage, then I'll pick this force ban. Right. Setsuka. Yeah, again, I know this is Setsuka's shit, but I picked it on 2, not for damage, but just for the evasion, and just for RNG, right? The unit was so cringe. This unit was definitely one of the reasons why a lot of people hated this season. I definitely didn't like fighting this unit, but it wasn't unplayable for me because I had Briar, right? So, yeah. Rowana, again, just high effectiveness, right? Be able to tag everything. Even in ER Frenzy, I'll pick this because like I don't care. It's 300 effectiveness. Like, it's gonna land for the most part. I'll pick this on 3 sometimes if they first pick a Runka and I have Luna Renak, right? Then Rowana becomes very strong because they can't go AU Fiend because you have Renak that can take 2 turns and push up Rowana, or you have Luna that can seal those passives, and then like your 4 and 5 DPS can be in front, like let's say an SBA, and then Rana can push off the SBA after they're already sealed, right? So I did that a couple times versus those AE Fienders, and it worked out pretty much like flawlessly. So yeah, Rana on 3 was really good in some scenarios like that where you had Luna and Lunax. Yeah. Boss Arunka, my other main first pick besides Scales, right? And Freeren. This is, I know it's kind of scuffed, but Prot set on Rocket Punch, right? Prot set was important for Spirit Eye and to tank a couple hits if they have like a Freeren carry, right? Immunity is really important, obviously. And then Rocket Punch to help kill the Freeren. It was on proof, but because you fight so much Freeren with Barunka, you need Rocket Punch to help deal with the Freeren, even if she's not countering. So when she like S3s the Freeren, she can break the barrier, do some splash, and then 2-shot her after that, right? So yeah. And last pick, Amiki, like just into anti-cleave, and you know how Amiki works, right? Nothing really special. So yeah, that's all the units I did for the fall season.
I think you'll regret.
Yeah, I forgot they get rid of the rocks. Oops. But yeah, I do have a couple shoutouts. Shoutouts to Ace Trainer for climbing with me. You know what I'm saying? We built up the tent together. Fucking went up like base camp 3, 4, death zone to the summit at the same time, even though he was tweaking out a little bit during the last week because he kept like being paranoid about the cutoff and trying to gaslight me to play. But regardless of that, Ace Trainer still shoutouts to you. Vic Chun obviously as well, because we were both playing Firecleave, right? So we're just trying to learn from each other and see if we can figure out stuff that other people don't, and try to, like, you know, make our climb a little bit easier. Right. Jamsis, shout out to Jamsis because he was also playing this season, and it's nice seeing Jamsis play. Shout out Ducky as well. Right. He just finished Legend for the first time too, so congrats to him. And everyone that's like in the Chen Fun server and Toss server and stuff like that. And I think that is it for this account review. I hope this was informational at least. And eventually I'll try to make more Cleave content when Teo and Rand get buffed and try to, I don't know, evolve the meta, I guess. But yeah, for now that'll be it. And I will try to upload more, but we'll see, right? But yeah, I appreciate it. I will talk to you guys later. See ya.